I'm also keeping a close eye to see if the video is really running. Hello, it's me again, the beard from Osterholz, because the beard is actually the only thing you can see. This is not a mistake. It's intentional on this channel. Today, the video might be longer because the MPX is its own topic. Carbon dioxide is its own topic. Compressed air is its own topic. And of course, the scattergun is its own topic. 2001, each of them has its justification. Let's go through it step by step. How should I put it, want to know the most important thing right from the start. So about 4 joules come out of it, and for once I'm not complaining about that. Why? We'll get to that later. It's one of my favorite phrases. We'll get to that later. Let's start with what it's really about, namely this piece here. This is the Sig Sauer MPX. Yes, Sig Sauer doesn't actually manufacture airguns. It's a commercial license. I think it's GSG 2001. Or is it Umarex? I don't really know now. I'm guessing it's GSG, but I'm not sure. Yes, it's made, for once, not in some way in China, but in Japan. The Japanese also make guns even though they have one of the strictest gun laws in the world. So, you're not allowed to do anything at all. Apparently that's allowed. To make a bit of space here, this is the stock that normally belongs on here. You just put it on, then click the big button here, and that's it. It's thicker than the original so that the big CO2 cartridges can fit in there. I'm going to check that off for now so I can make some space on the table. Then I put it somewhere like up there. So, now we have a bit of space for magazines and everything. Up there. So now we have a bit of space for magazines and everything. Let's take a look at this fine piece first. So this is a Sig Sauer MPX in the silencer version. Although the silencer isn't really a silencer at all. Irritating, but that's how it is. On this side it actually just says victory. On the other side it says that it's very dangerous, that it's like a contract, the fine print. It says all sorts of things. Then it says, which is very important, the F symbol and a serial number. Man, I was so startled. I already did the first test shots with it yesterday, and then I said, where's the F symbol actually? And then I searched and searched, and I didn't think that it was just laser etched in here. Looking for engraved symbol, no serial number, panic. Watched videos, realized too. So I watched some videos and realized, oh, I should check there. And then I saw, oh crap, there it actually is. It could be that this is intentionally not printed too boldly. Because I know that many collectors really don't like F symbols and numbers and anything that's not real. And especially not this printed text about how dangerous everything is, blah, 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 blah. It's a replica of the MPX. There are tons of different variants of it. In stores, you can find them in tan, you can find them in black, you can find them in short, long, with a silencer, without a silencer. Don't know, there are a lot of options. Most of what you see is actually fake. So this lever here, as far as I know, is meant to be used when the bolt isn't fully closed on the original. You hit it here to make it close, sealing it off, hopefully without making too much noise. With the G, in such cases, you used to just slam the stock on the ground and then the bolt would go click and move to where it was supposed to go. The safety lever is real. It only allows for safe, no fire, and single fire. So there's no burst fire setting here. But for once, I'm usually a big skeptic when it comes to air pressure and safety. But for once, I think, yeah, because this thing is under pressure, it could hypothetically fire. Having a safety makes sense. It's not like I'm saying I take a shot and then there's no ping anymore. A lot can happen here. The safety lever. That's the magazine release button, which you can easily operate with your index finger if you're right-handed. On the left side, there are more controls, but they aren't really controls. I don't even know what they're for. It's all just for show. It's all just a facade. That's all metal. That's plastic. That's metal again. But, yeah, how should I put it? This thing is heavy. I mean, really heavy. This thing, as it is now with the compressed air, is heavier than the original. So, this isn't some soft air plastic gun. This is a real hefty piece. Scope, it says there's a 1 to 4 times zoom on it, which is kind of annoying, but, well, it's included. There's a version that only has open sights. There's a version with a red dot sight, and there's a version with a scope. This is the one with the scope. It says Sig Sauer, and it also says Sig Sauer on the side. Greetings from China or Japan, who knows? I suspect that even the Japanese import these things from China. These are the cover caps for the adjustment turrets. I've already lowered it now because I adjusted it earlier, and you can twist it by hand. I always find it very, very pleasant when it's like that. There's no separate adjustment here. Objective adjustment, so distance adjustment. There's only a focus adjustment here, and of course the zoom. Yeah, be honest, I haven't tried yet if I can unscrew something from the front with a little trick. Yes, I can. I'm noticing that with my rubber gloves. I can twist something here at the front. 2001. That's good. You can probably also adjust the height setting to 10 meters with that. So, you know, the most superficial thing here, compressed air, is a special area. I'll get to that later. Here are the mounts at the front, where the front handle can also be screwed on. It's nice and short. So when you're handling the weapon outdoors, the grip is comfier than just resting your hand on it. Up front, there's a little guard to prevent your hand from slipping in front of the barrel by accident, especially when it's a shorter version, and there's a loop for a sling, which I never use anyway. I haven't mounted it because I shoot while resting the weapon. And there's a loop in there for a sling, for a rifle sling, which I never really use anyway. I haven't mounted it now because I shoot while resting the weapon. If you want to rest it, that thing gets in the way. Otherwise, you can screw on all sorts of silly stuff here. However, here we only have a continuous Picatinny rail or Weaver rail, 1001. By now I know that there's no difference in width, but the spacing of the individual crossbars here, that's a difference. That's why I'm not committing to what that is. And there are definitely such rails to attach to this system. Yeah, it's a bit frustrating, but that's just how it is. Wow. The silencer is not a silencer. So you can spend a long time tinkering with it until it eventually comes off. I've already put a drop oil on it. That's just a protective cover for the barrel. Thing is empty, so there's no silencing effect. And up front, there are the spikes from the original as a window breaker. I don't know how often you break windows with the air rifle, I'm just saying it's there. Now I'm going to do the following. The weapon is secured, there's no magazine in it. Now I'm going to try to determine, best with a flashlight, whether this barrel is rifled, because based on the shooting results, I wouldn't necessarily assume that it's a rifled barrel. But I see some grooves. Yes, it is rifled. I don't know if they're referring to precision rifling, like you'd find in a good match rifle. There are grooves in there. So, since this free-floating barrel seems very sensitive to me, I'm quickly putting the cap back on. 1000, because fast is also a relative term, and screws it for a while. It's a very fine thread, in case I ever hit anything. Yeah, that's how you find airtime. So fixed. So, that's just a quick summary. Same thing that's in every other video, that there's a flap here where you can put small stuff in the grip. My God, we saw that 20 years ago with paintball guns. Yeah, at 1000. Then I'll swing over now. Oh, the magazines, that must be really interesting for you, how the hell these magazines work. This is a magazine you can open up. And here are these ammo chains. The previous owner, yeah, I obviously bought this thing used. Luckily, the previous owner bought a spare magazine. There are actually 3 more chains included, while the standard package only comes with 1 magazine with one of those chains. You just have to take a little time. Make some soup or something like steak glasses. Then at some point, you also fill these thirsty things up. They just get slid in like that. That's relatively unremarkable. It's relatively unremarkable how it works with the metal side facing the shooting direction. And then it comes back here to the other end pretty much exactly where you started. So, that works pretty well, I have to say. I still need to make a thumbnail for this, maybe something tangled up. So, we'll just put that here. And then I can make a thumbnail out of that, best with the big orange hands still in the picture. So, that's enough. That works. 30 shots. I made a shooting video where I just empty magazines. And that should have come out a day before this one. And that's why you can check that out. That's why I'm not going to go into it too much. 1000. Target accuracy actually comes with the weapon. So first of all, the trigger itself is all metal, of course. The trigger, you have to cock it once beforehand here. What comes next is a light double action. I don't know how much is operated by gas inside, basically as blowback, but you definitely have to work a bit with the trigger. But it's relatively light, so it's not a match trigger, not suitable for playing precision shooting, but it works and isn't heavy. What comes out of it is this. I watched the video. Did you see it? Of course, you all watch my videos. That was the first magazine. That was the second. No, it was the other way around. No. I think that was the first magazine. That was the second magazine, and that was then 2 magazines. Let's call it a burst fire. Yeah. When I usually talk about air rifles, like break barrel air rifles, I would say, oh man, this has nothing to do with that. Instead, you have to compare this thing more with, let's say, the Oktoberfest rifle from Diana. I have this thing here too, and I made a video about it. And when I look at the view counts of this Oktoberfest video, I mean, for those who watch videos, this thing is a hit, even though it spreads more than this one and has only half the muzzle energy, and it sells like crazy. So basically, there's nothing wrong with the fact that there are also a certain number of interested buyers for this. Basically, what I already mentioned in the shooting video, when you look at this now, it's bang, bang, bang. So, try to keep the crosshair in the middle of the target, or just give it a solid hit with a good 2001. If you turn it around, and imagine those 6 things gone, then this is what's left. And when I say that for such a device, 60 shots, you can cover that with a $200 bill. So, you can't complain the rifle at 10 meters. You can be happy if you hit the target because the sights can't manage 10 meters. 2 joules won't get you far. You can be happy if you even hit the target because the sighting system just can't handle 10 meters. With 2 joules, you just don't get very far. This thing shoots at 4 joules. That actually brings me to the topic of why. Why am I not complaining about 4 joules? Why don't I get the most out of it? The problem is that the spread is relatively large. For that, I can consult my laptop. Again, he really had a lot to do with the number of shots. So I didn't just say 20 shots and that's it, but I measured until the tablet was glowing. Do I still have it? Yes. Shot count 21. So I've done several series, and the last measured series is actually just 21. And I'm just going to go through this quickly. 4.5 joules. We're talking about joules of muzzle energy. 4.5, 4.3, 4.1, 4.8, 4.0, 4.2, 3.3, 4.2, 4.9, 3.3, 4.2, 4.94. It's almost 5 joules. 3.3, 4.4, 3.6. So there's quite a bit of variation. So we have another 5.0 in between. So there's quite a bit of variation. I can also express it in numbers here. High was 144 mes, low was 117 mes, average is 102 and 30 mes per set spread. From 27 ms, as I said, with a normal air rifle, you would say, oh no. But we're dealing with a device here that normally runs on carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is tricky depending on the temperature and the situation. And that's why the industry here in Germany, in our land of castrates, has to set this thing up so that it definitely doesn't exceed the famous 7.5 joules. With the variations, and I'll get to the topic of CO in a moment, CO is even worse. With the variations, they have no choice but to stay below a certain level and really make sure to stay under 7.5. That's why I don't complain. A second reason could be that the mechanics inside are obviously much more complicated than with any break barrel air rifle, which somehow works perfectly for at least 40, 50, or 60 years, while this thing doesn't. I don't believe that. Of course, a completely different number of shots goes through this compared to the break barrel. I'm saying here 60 shots. How long did I take? Less than 1 minute. Accordingly, the mechanics are loaded properly and powerfully with CO and so on. Okay. That brings me to, before I jump ahead, I have this here. I've covered that. I've covered that. A brief overview of the technology. So let's first get to CO. Because normally I avoid CO like the devil avoids holy water. Why? Because I have experience. I was a paintball player from the very beginning. I have a lot of experience with CO. From capsules to small bottles to large bottles. And the things I've learned from that are, well, CO is first of all a liquid. It's not just gas like that, but it's at a certain pressure. I think it starts at 56 bar. At 56 bar, it becomes a liquid. That's why these things aren't filled based on pressure, like so many bars. Because the pressure doesn't say anything about the content, but rather about the weight. They are weighed to see if they are full or empty. This one is definitely full. It weighs a lot. These things are expensive. It costs around 8 to 10 euros for one of those. If you order in larger quantities, it will probably be cheaper. But don't think I want to have to order large quantities of such expensive stuff. So, now it's in a paintball marker. It used to be that they were placed like that. Now you have to remember it's a liquid. That means the level is somewhere here. So, when I shoot now, pressure is released at the front, and inside, the liquid is practically bubbling up and turning back into vapor until it reaches 56 bar again at a certain temperature. CO is extremely temperature dependent. When it got cold outside, the paintball players could no longer play because the CO simply no longer built up any pressure. On the flip side, when it's sunny and warm in the height of summer, you have to keep these things in the shade for God's sake. So, not just these, but also the big tanks like the paintball markers, it's a huge circus. So, now we have, the case here. That's why paintball players like to have expansion chambers or keep their pressure tanks standing upright so that the stuff really vaporizes. If I shoot a quick series now, like this here for example, the principle of how to create cold is by evaporating a liquid. So, if I shoot quickly and take out CO fast, this thing will be covered in ice in no time at all. But when it gets covered in ice, it doesn't evaporate anything anymore. So single shot, all good, but rapid fire, really, really bad. Now it goes even further. Now the capsule is positioned like this. You can see here it's perfectly straight. If this is the original thing here, it gets screwed directly onto the back and then the bird just goes over it. There's nothing about piercing here. The capsules have their own thread, in case you haven't dealt with this thing yet. It's lying horizontally. Now you can already see that if the liquid is still relatively high, then no gas comes out at the front. Instead, liquid comes out and evaporates in the system. So at the beginning, when you shoot quickly, the system gets ice cold in no time and doesn't evaporate much anymore. Now let's say it's relatively warm, which means the liquid comes in as a liquid, gets shot out as a liquid, and evaporates in the barrel. Then you have the hot gun, of course. In paintball, it was always measured with the cone to make sure the things don't shoot too hot. So, not too hot for our standards, not necessarily the standards in Germany, but more from an international perspective. This also applies to CO guns. That means if you shoot quickly with this, it can happen that you get hot shots. You can tell when snow is coming out of the exhaust. Yeah, it also looks like an exhaust. When snow is crumbling out of the front, you know the whole system is completely under CO. And it doesn't evaporate much anymore. And I've often seen CO snow coming out from the front of paintball guns. Anyone who played paintball back in the day knows the VM68 and the typical sound it makes, U-sand. That's when the whole Form 68, which has taken in a lot of gas, is completely frozen and the pressure isn't enough to repeat. Then you get this brr sound. Yeah, those are the problems you have with CO, not to mention the costs. I mean, when a party animal lets the psychopath in them out, I don't think there's much better suited for that than this device. Then yeah, you're a candidate for freezing. The problem in the paintball area was already solved about, 20 years ago with compressed air. Of course, everything was more expensive back then. The technology just wasn't really there. Blah, blah, blah. These days, it's no problem at all. Compressed air. Compressed air has the big advantage that it doesn't cost any money. So, compressed air is basically all around us, just without the press. Another advantage is that any temperature differences don't really matter to compressed air. That's a gas-filled body. There's no liquid that evaporates. And when you shoot quickly, you shoot fast. Nothing gets cold there either. Of course, it also applies that where you take pressure out, cold is generated. But not even in a different way, not even close to what happens with CO. Alright, so now we have compressed air here. You obviously saw the video from yesterday from yesterday, almost just earlier, when I was shooting really nicely. I think I fired a total of 120 shots there. And, just in case you're interested, I was a bit surprised at first during the test shooting yesterday. I cranked that thing up to 200, shot maybe 1 or 2 magazines, and then it was pretty much over. I wonder, why is there so little pressure in there? I had it at PSI. That wasn't 300 bar, that was 2000 PSI. That's about 2/3 of what goes into 3000 PSI. So I have to look at the timer and you have to go to 3, which the bottle has accordingly. The German TÜV has approved it up to 207 bar. And oh wonder, 3000 PSI is 206.8 bar. What a coincidence. Yes, So I pumped them up to 3,000 psi today, which is about 200 bar. I fired 120 shots now, and we're at 2,000 psi. That means you can still fire another 70 or 80 shots without it getting noticeably weak. After that, it gets pretty weak pretty quickly, so pretty clear cut. So now the pressure is starting to run low. There's still a second regulator installed in here somewhere. So there's a regulator on top here. This is an adapter piece that turns the bottle thread into a CO thread, so to speak. And in here, there's still a regulator somewhere that makes sure everything is right with the pressure, that it doesn't get too high and that it doesn't get too low. Some are heat controls. 2 regulators work at 1,1200 psi, adjustable despite appearance. Anyway, there are 2 regulators at work, and around, well, I'd say 1,000, 1,200 psi, it slowly starts saying, that's enough. I'm done for the day. Okay, you need to know, this looks weird, but it can be turned. These are the exact same plastic shoulder stocks that used to be on the co2 for paintball. I just did it like that. Check out the shooting video that was released yesterday. So let's put it this way. It fits better this way because it's perfectly straight. I have a really hard time getting my head in here. So you probably see me looking down again. It's really hard to look through the scope. And this is perfectly straight. The stock here is also perfectly straight. It's original, but it's much thinner. So everything works. But it's more comfortable with compressed air. Compressed air is free if you have a pump or a refillable tank that you get filled regularly. Or like I have a small compressor because I have the, what's it called again? I have the Bandit, for example. I have the Coyote. I somehow have exactly my competition set up. The Hammers, the 480, they all need compressed air. And the Hände, you might still be able to pump up with a hand pump without really killing yourself in the process. But something like this, no. And that's why I've had a compressor sitting here for weeks anyway. And once you have the compressor, then dealing with compressed air is no big deal anymore. You just turn it on, and then the thing is full again. Done. No need to buy new capsules or anything like that. So, compressed air is definitely ahead, but it does cost some money to get started, and then you're good to go. So, what topic did we have left? Scatter gun. I think I already mentioned that somehow. When I compare this to the Jana Oktoberfest rifle, it's not that bad. Then you have to say, this is at 10 meters. And most people don't have 10 meters at home. This means that according to the Ray theorem, the size is halved at half the distance. So if you're shooting at 5 meters, you only have half the size of the scatter pattern. Which is fine. Since I'm on the topic of only having 5 meters available, this thing is loud. It's pre-compressed air, bang, 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 with a cracking bullet sound, normally an ideal candidate for a silencer. But unfortunately, that's not possible. No silencers. There's no silencer here, and there isn't one available for this. There are different models you can check out, where maybe a silencer can be attached at the front. I just didn't do it because I always buy at eGun Usand, parentheses eGan. I'll make a video about that too. eGun written, so basically like eBay, just with iGun. Prices. You always want to know a price. I actually paid 308 euro gold coins. This thing. Why did I do that? Well, on one hand, it's kind of unusual, and it's something that's good for the channel, I'd say. No, my channel is still not monetized. I don't get a single penny back from it. But as long as there are interested buyers, I can sell this thing again for more or less break even. And I wrote down the current individual prices. By the way, that's also interesting regarding the prices. Here. I looked at 4.5, and this gun in this version is $350. If you look around, you can see that the price range is quite large. However, if you find one somewhere that costs only $290, it also says underneath that it's currently unfortunately out of stock. And I really looked all over Google. You can't get them for less than $350 because they're out of stock everywhere. Yes, everything is open upwards. So if the gun dealer says I just need more sales, then I also know why they're not available, because the gun dealers and many other retailers get their guns from wholesalers. Nowadays, however, the wholesale trade is always its own competitor with its own online shop. This means that if the wholesaler is supposed to supply a retailer and the retailer undercuts the retail price, then of course the retailer will no longer receive any goods, because the wholesaler has no interest in ruining its own business by supplying someone else who does it cheaper, and therefore I find it relatively unlikely that, well, the cheap Jacobs will get any cheaper ones anytime soon. Then I have here that the reserve magazine with the 3 additional chains costs another $40. Then I also got 3 of these capsules. Unit price 8 to 10. I added another 30 euros. And then the compressed air thing. I just forgot who it was from. But it's written right here. Best fittings. And I see prices there too. I think here in Germany it's 106 and 30 euros. In England it's around 112, plus the horrendous import costs, especially from England with shipping and postage. And then there's customs and tax on top of that. Here we are again, and the German TÜV is definitely not on it yet. Here we have the German TÜV. 550 is the new price, which is why I thought 308. 2000 and 308 is a funny number, right? NATO caliber. Fits, though I doubt they shoot 308 originally. This is likely a 223 Remington. I think there is a version with 9 para as a pistol carbine. That's probably going to be a 223 Remington. Yeah, I think there's also a version with 9 para as a pistol carbine. Pistol carbine. Yeah, pistol carbine. So, that's the pricing topic. I've covered that too. Well, normally I do this banging the 1,000 in the bullet scope. But I already did that in detail yesterday. And the trigger on this device honestly doesn't deserve any attention, just like with a break barrel air rifle. With a break barrel air rifle, it's all about having a killer clean trigger with a pressure point, which we don't have here. It's going to be happily torn apart. The main thing is size over class. The more lead there is in the air, the more likely you are to hit something. This thing isn't meant to leave precision on a target. But you take a lump of modeling clay, shape it into something you want to destroy, and then you just blast it until that little clay figure is so full of lead that it's too heavy to move. That's what this thing is for. And it doesn't matter if it's only 4 joules on average. Because like I said, what do you want to break with this thing? What you want to kill with precision. For that, you can use any break barrel air rifle for a lot less money, instead of this lead blasting device. That's what it's for. I would say denting tin cans. You probably won't be hitting tin cans, but you can definitely dent them. Modeling clay is a fantastic material for this. Shooting match heads? Probably not. The precision just isn't enough for that. Matchboxes, on the other hand, are a great thing. What else is there? Yeah, everything that mommy didn't put away fast enough is actually great as a target, and you'll have a lot of fun with it. As for me, I'm not going to sell it off right away, but first I'm going to stock up on modeling clay. Here they are. I've shown you this before. I've got 2 kilos of modeling clay lying here. I'm definitely going to make some video about how I put something together, and then let my inner psychopath go wild. Yeah, that sounds better. If we're going for a psychopath, then let it be grammatically flawless, please. So, are we done already? Is that all there is? 1:30 minutes. Yeah, okay, 10 minutes longer than my funny chatter average. Well, I think you now know pretty much everything I know about this thing. And it's a lot of fun for a lot of money. Not even for free. It happens every now and then with eGun, but unfortunately there are still a lot of other interested parties, so the price is already shooting up to a certain height at $300. You might get lucky, but I would expect to pay a bit more than $300. Then I would say that's enough now. Then I thank you once again for enduring this angelic torture of taking all this in, and I wish you everything you wish for me. I'm just drumming a bit aimlessly with my big hands on the weapon, and now I'm going to turn off this camera all by myself without any outside help, and I'm definitely going to complain about it a little more. Just like that. Oh, poor me, I have to do everything myself. No minions? No one to do the editing except me? Until next time, Stephen Moreholes, 2001.